Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. Wow, it's Dr. Herbert Harris, and I want to welcome you to Success Mentorship class number 373. Isn't that amazing? 373 weeks we have been sharing and talking and being together on one accord. I invite you, of course, to visit our website www.herbertharris.com, and to be sure to get a copy of our book, The 12 Universal Laws of Success. And we're going to tell you about some special things we have coming up with respect to the book. And this message, this day, is a powerful one because the goal is to share spiritual principles. And it's not a religious message, but a spiritual message of application in your everyday life. Things that you can do to transform yourself from who you are to exactly who you want to be, and even more importantly, who you were created to be. And so, to get ready for this message, let us do our meditation and sit straight up in our seats. And today, let us be open and receptive. So, let's put our hands on our knees and let's put them palm up so that we're open and receptive to the message and to the good vibrations that will transform our lives. Take a deep breath and hold it. Let it out slowly. Take a deep breath and hold it. Let it out slowly. And in this space of peace and relaxation, I am at peace with myself. Let us affirm that. I am at peace with myself. And as that peaceful state just sinks into our being and we become comfortable in it, we know that our minds are open, receptive, and ready to learn. My mind is open, receptive, and ready to learn. Take a deep breath. Let it out slowly. And so it is. Sometimes when we get into meditation, I don't want to come back. I like to stay there. This idea of the second resurrection, since it is the the Easter season, and when we look at the word resurrection itself, the etymology of the word itself, we tend to use it in Easter time as resurrection, as rising from the dead. But in the French derivation, it really is standing up, to rise up. So it's not necessarily just to raise from the dead in that sense, but it's to stand up for your beliefs, to stand up for yourself, to make a declarative activity or motion towards accomplishing something really great, something really important. The reference is the book of Resurrection, and probably, as I said, this is not a religious um, talk, but the Bible is a great sense of spiritual guidance, and basically all the holy books, if you really read them in a parallel fashion, have a very similar meaning, similar thoughts. Buddha says, "As a man thinks, so is he." The scripture says, the Bible says, you become what you think about most of the time. So common themes. So the first resurrection is what is called the resurrection of the righteous in the book of Revelations, and the second resurrection is the resurrection of the unrighteous. And the symbology there is that you can always become new. No matter how bad you've been, no matter what terrible things you've done, that once you change your mind, change your thinking, you can transform your thoughts from what they were to what they were designed to be. And so when we start thinking about this, we all know the Easter story. And the front end of the story, uh, Jesus comes into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday after he had done numerous miracles, including raising Lazarus from the dead. And he did numerous miracles in sight of many people when you read that whole section. And between that Palm Sunday and by next Sunday, he had been tried, been betrayed, tried, convicted, crucified, buried in the grave, in the tomb. And as they say, on the third day, he arose. But very few people go into what happened after that. So, in the Jesus mind, that's the first resurrection, that first resurrection from the dead. But what happened after that, Jesus spent the next 40 days traveling the Holy Land, teaching his disciples, preparing them for their mission, and showing himself to many people, really as an example to let people know that it's possible to have life after death, that you can overcome the greatest fear that many people have, that of dying. And his whole mission was to prepare his people, his disciples now, for their mission. And so he spent 40 days traveling and training and interacting with them. And so let's look at just the symbology of it for ourselves. I look at the first resurrection as the resurrection from who you were. You know, many of us have faced some really challenging experiences. We've had some Goliaths in our lives. And we've had Goliaths of blindness, where we've overcome blindness. We've had Goliaths of sickness and overcome that. We've had Goliaths of abusive relationships and overcome those things. So that first resurrection is really the resurrection from who you were, the rising above your circumstances. You know, in the 12 Universal Laws of Success on page 59 and 60, in the Law of Change, there's a whole section there on the prodigal son. And basically what the prodigal son is saying, that after the prodigal son had really messed up, had gotten his money and gone out into the far country and parted his money away, and now he's busted, disgusted, and feeding somebody else's pigs. But then it says, in that condition that he was in, he came to himself. And he said, in my father's house, you know, even the servants have food enough and more. And so many of us in our lives, when we have faced these challenges, we get to that point where we just say, oh my goodness, I can't take it anymore. I'm sure the prodigal son in the pig pen of life said, this is not me. And so in our lives, many times we get to that point and say, whatever the circumstances, whatever the situations I am going through, this is not me. Whether it's constant failure, constant disappointment, whether it's abusive relationships, whether it's illness, this is not me. And the moment we make that change in thinking, you know, that says, be not conformed to this world, but you don't have to stay stuck in that particular mindset. Now you can arise. And as the prodigal son, he says, I will arise and go to my father. And that's the arise, the arising, that resurrectional arise that we're talking about. I will change my condition from what it was to what I want it to be. The interesting thing there, the symbology is the moment the father saw the prodigal son coming, it says, and the father ran to greet him and to hug him and to put the robes on him and the rings on him. And what this is saying is the moment you make a decision in your life to change, to transform, to not accept the conditions that you're living in and experiencing, the moment you make that decision, the universe, God, the God mind, the eternal consciousness rushes to confirm your decision. And it happens so often. I was thinking of those situations where you know it, and I know we've all experienced it, where your back was against the wall and if you looked at the odds of your overcoming this particular situation, they were not good, but yet somehow you were able to do it. And you were able to do it by transforming your thinking and setting your mind to doing it. When David faced Goliath, he thought about it. And if you remember in the story, the king said, "Well, here, use my armor." And at that point, David tried, and he said, "No, I have to deal with Goliath with what I know." As he said, he picked up the 5 stones, the smooth stones, stones of understanding, stones that you believe in, your core values. And so as you make this resurrection and you transform yourself from what you are to what you want to be, the second resurrection is about becoming what you were destined to be. The second resurrection is what you do after you get out of that bad relationship, what you do after you overcome the illness, what you do after you finally succeed after trying and failing for so many years. And this is that resurrection, that second resurrection, that I think we can find a lot of instruction and help us to become better people and help us to be more successful no matter what we're doing. And so what are the keys? What are the 4 steps to the second resurrection? Well, the first step is to be grateful. You see, the fact that we're alive right now, the fact that we're on this call right now, we have already accomplished what many people who went to bed last night have not accomplished. That we're still here, we're still standing, and we're still standing with a level of consciousness that makes us look around and say, there's more. There's something I'm supposed to do. And so the moment you're grateful for where you are right now, Oprah Winfrey said, whatever you're grateful for, you get more of. And so the fact that you made this resurrection from the old you, this transformation of the person you used to be, there's an implication there that you're not alive just because of happenstance and because you got lucky. You're alive for a purpose. God, nature, the universe does not create any junk. So the fact that you're alive right now means that you have greater work to do. I love the story Steve Harvey was telling how, he said he said it's all about God, and he was saying this that he was a comedian out in the on the, as they call it, the Chitlin circuit, and he got a call to come to MC at the Apollo, kind of a stand-in, and he didn't have the money to get there. It would cost $150, and he's singing to himself, "Man, I don't have the money to get there. Finally, I get a break, and I don't have the money to take advantage of it." And he said all of a sudden, the guy calls from down in Florida and says, "Hey, I got a night for you in the comedy club. Come down here." And the pay was $150, which was just what he needed to get to New York. When he got to New York, he did the audition. He emceed the show, and he did a good job, but he wasn't selected. But lo and behold, the person who was selected eventually left the show to go on to bigger things, and they called Steve back in, and the rest is history. Once he became the longest serving MC at the Showtime at the Apollo program. And he always said, nothing but God, nothing but God. So what this is saying is the fact that you're still in the game and you're grateful for it, you have your health, you have your consciousness. Now you can, whatever you're grateful for, you'll get more of. You appreciate and you attract more of it into your life. The second step is to be intentional. So this idea of the second resurrection now is that once you've made this first breakthrough, you don't have to stay stuck. We often say there are two kinds of journeys. There are journeys from and there are journeys to. Well, often that resurrection is a journey from, but the second resurrection is the journey to. So what do you do now that you've been blessed? What do you do now that you understand that There's a reason for your being here, and you have the capacity to do more and greater things. So, in the second resurrection, evaluate. Look at your personal behaviors. When we used to work with prisoners, and we used to work with prisoners who were going to be coming out of jail within like a year to prepare them. And one of the things we shared with them said, we don't go back to the same playground with the same playmates and the same playthings. So once you're grateful for where you are right now, don't let your mind go back to the same old negative thinking, that prodigal son thinking that caused you to be in the hole in the first place. So look at your personal behavior, look at your attitude. Now that you have done this, made this first resurrection, and you're in the second resurrection, embrace the experiences, positive and negative. The moment you make that decision to change and transform your life and say, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, I want to live a life of abundance. I want to live a life around people who love me and lift me up. I want to live a life of purpose. That you really see that all the things that happen now are opportunities for growth. That shift in mindset, that new mindset now says that anything that's going on in your life right now, there's an opportunity for you to rise above it. It's your Goliath moment. That whatever's facing you right now, the fact that you're alive and kicking and have consciousness and willpower, that whatever it is right now, just keep rolling. That any experience that you have is for your growth. Sometimes it may not look like that, but I guarantee you that when you get through it and you look back, you're like, man, I'm glad they stole my car. Because if they hadn't stolen my car, I wouldn't have gotten upset. And I went to talk to a person to help me, and they said, my goodness, I love your book. Okay. I love to back you in marketing this book. Oh, wow. So if my car had never gotten stolen, I'd never been to that point in time and space. So to look at every situation in your life as working for good, that there's some growth that you're supposed to go to and get a message from this. Also, be intentional about your personal mission. What are you supposed to do with your life? What are you supposed to do with this gift that you've been given? So, life is the ultimate gift. Time is the ultimate gift. What you do with your life and your time is your gift to the Creator. And so, be intentional and develop a clear personal mission that guides your daily actions and your daily decisions. You see, we are where we are because of the decisions we make and the actions we take. And that's a powerful thought, folks. So, as it says, whatever we decide to do and act on it, that creates the reality that we experience. So, when you're intentional about what you want to do, many of us are entrepreneurs. We're in a business. We're in a business where you, as they say, you eat what you hunt. Okay. I was sharing last time. I know what it was, Christine. We were talking when Christine was teaching sales. She said that her manager said to her, if things are not going good, he said, do you have 3 appointments a day? If you don't have 3 appointments a day, then next week you're not going to make any money. Next month you're not going to make any money. And so having this clear picture of your mission, your role, your goal, and then having the actions and decisions that support that. That's all a part of that second resurrection. The third key, be faithful and accountable. And when I say faithful, I mean faithful to your core values. Many of us are in the Great Discovery, and the Great Discovery International course is an interesting piece where it talks about core values. And we don't think about our core values and how important they are. But if we are on the river of time, on the boat that is our lives, that is navigating the river of time, your core values are the rudder that guide you. And so in this second resurrection, be faithful to your core values. Knowing how powerful your choices are, let your choices now be ethical and good and considerate. and positive and helpful. You see, the moment you come from that mindset, you create a positive vibration now that starts to attract things into your space. We often say in sales, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so when you're faithful and accountable and transparent, you literally radiate a vibration that makes people want to follow you, that makes them want to do better. Keep that positive outlook. Always see it from the glass as half full. All of the challenges that you experience are opportunities for growth, for improvement, for innovation. And accountability is powerful, folks, because accountability gives you a measure of where you are on your journey and how far you've come and how far you have to go. Accountability is like having that GPS, that life GPS that tells you which way to go and what to do and how to do it. And as long as you have that life GPS, you have a destination and you have a location, you can just follow the path. When you're faithful and accountable, you'll inspire trust and credibility. In this business that we're in, and many of us who are entrepreneurs, if people don't trust you and people don't believe in you, they won't follow you. And so being faithful and accountable is a part of the second resurrection because it's the new you as you're defining yourself. And then finally, the fourth key is to build a legacy. Now, this is really the mission. When you really study those 40 days that Christ walked upon the earth and trained his disciple, the message that he was sharing was that they had a mission, that they had a mission to teach and to go out and spread the gospel. That was his whole role, to give them once a sense of mission and the skill set to be able to accomplish it. In our lives, as we create this second resurrection, we must have a sense of legacy, that our life is bigger than the moments we have lived. From, as they say, the dash between the numbers. You know, my aunt used to hate that on the obituaries. They'd put the sunrise and sunset. She said it's not about, it's about what the person did while they were here. And so this idea of a legacy, the message that we get from this 40 days of traveling and instructing and uplifting, is that we have to have a bigger mission. That we were not just created to consume, we were created to rule. As I said, we were given dominion. There is a reason why alligators don't build apartment houses. Alligators have been doing the same thing for millions of years, but yet, man, every time you look, we're creating something bigger because we are part of that God consciousness where their only limitation is our own imagination. So from this point on, as a part of your second resurrection, only engage in those actions that are positive, that impact the lives of other people in a positive way. Those only involve and do those things that are congruent with your values. We often talk about the golden rule. So don't do unto anybody else anything that you wouldn't like done to you. The idea of legacy means that the fact that we were born means that we have a connection. We are basically spiritual beings having a human experience. So the fact that you're born means that you have an important part to play. If life is a great symphony, and maybe you're the saxophone player in the woodwind section, well, that symphony that is the world will be different if you don't play your notes at the proper time. And so the idea of this legacy is that you were put here to do big things, and you were put here now to impact the world in a positive way. You know, those of us who are entrepreneurs, there's a scripture I really, Proverbs, the 13th chapter and the 22nd verse, and it says, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. So when you come from that mindset of legacy, of what you do now is not just for you, but it's for your children and your children's children. What you do now is not just for you, it is for the world. You have the ability to make the world a better place. And so it is through the second resurrection now that we can begin to ascend to that point in consciousness where we are who we were created to be, where we have the power to create life exactly the way we want it to. So this to summarize, to sort of wrap it up today, this idea of the first and second resurrection is a spiritual principle that can guide you. That first resurrection from who you are or who you were, that many of us have to determine who we really are and the reason for our being. And then that second resurrection of what you do now that you know who you are. You know, many people have a resurrection and they go back, like an alcoholic who goes to AA and stops drinking and operates in a good way for 10 years, and then circumstances change and stuff happens, and bingo, they're back on alcohol. Or people who come out of prison and they're doing well and they get out into the world and go back into some of the old habits and they're back in prison. So the second resurrection says, you rise to your potential. You rise to your destiny. You rise to your purpose, and acknowledging that you were uniquely created to serve a divine and important purpose. And the 4 steps to help you manifest that second resurrection is to be grateful for what you have, for where you are, for the life you've lived to this point. Grateful because whatever you're grateful for, you prime the pump of abundance to give you more. To be intentional now, knowing who you are, knowing that you have a role now, to be intentional about pursuing that person that you were created to be, doing those powerful things that must be done. To be faithful and accountable, to always stick to your values, that your values define you, and that your values now determine how the world interacts with you. And then to be accountable, to always count the numbers. You know, you can't measure your progress unless you keep score. So be accountable. You know, when it talks about the book of life, that's the symbology there saying that you should be accountable because everything you do is written in the book of life. Every decision you make, every action you take has a manifestation in your life. And then finally, focus on building that legacy. Focus on that bigger part of you and the reason for your creation. So approach life with gratitude for what you have. Be intentional about what you wish to become. Be faithful and resilient and accountable, knowing that your life experience is based on your decisions and your actions, and be committed to build a legacy. A legacy that says you can be what you want to be, you can do what you want to do, and you can have anything you desire, always knowing that the best is yet to come. Wow. Let's just take a deep breath and let it out. Folks, thank you so much for being with us today. This message is, I know, a little different for an Easter season, but it's really about you and the potential that you have for living your purpose and experiencing your destiny. I invite you, this season that we're in now, Easter season, is always a preliminary season. It's always that season where we're planning for good things, graduations in high school and graduations in college. And one of the things that's happened over the years is that our book, The 12 Universal Laws of Success, has become probably one of the most valuable graduation gifts. And so for these next few weeks, as we're moving into this graduation section, I want to invite each of you to get a book, get an autographed copy of the 12 Universal Laws of Success. Get 3 of them, get 6 of them, because if you want to give a gift that will change people's lives, then give a gift of knowledge and wisdom. And so I invite you to go to our website get a copy of our book, get three, and we have a special bonus for each and every one of you. You know, we were listening and talking and last week and about what we could do to help motivate people, to help you decide to, hey, let me go on and do this. Let me get this book. Let me give a gift. Let me change a life. And so anybody who's by us, we have a nice three-book package or a six-book package. You can get one book and we'll autograph it, or you can get three autographed or six autographed. And anybody who gets at least three of the books autographed will get a free 8-day, 7-night vacation. Wow. Worth over $5,000. So the first 20 of you who order online, those out who are watching on Instagram, those on YouTube, can go to www.theperfectgift.me. Theperfectgift.me. And when you get more than three or more of our books autographed by me, The Perfect Gift, we're going to send you a free coupon for a vacation. All you got to do is get there. You pay your travel and the tax, but the vacation is yours. And we've been getting great reports that people have gotten incredible vacations. So be sure to get the perfect gift for anyone you care about. And go to our website, www.theperfectgift.me, M-E. I think we've done everything today, and I hope that those of you who are watching on Instagram and those on YouTube will go out and get that book and transform the lives of people you care about. Those of you on our Zoom, please stick around, hang around so that we can have a discussion. We want to hear your feedback, your thoughts, and what you're going to do to create your own personal resurrection. So as we close out, we say you can always be what you want to be, do what you want to do, and have anything you desire, always knowing that the best is yet to come. And so it is.